It's our December update. Michael P. McCarthy. And how are you, Michael?
I'm doing well.
You're already getting, this is our December update, but it's just before Thanksgiving. Are you getting ready for Thanksgiving?
Yes, I got all my stuff. Despite calls for shortages, the only thing I had to sacrifice on is non-name brand canned cranberry. Couldn't get the ocean spray.
Cranberry. Okay. Well, it's okay. Cranberry jelly tastes the same no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you? Are you going to do anything different down there in Florida for Thanksgiving?
We've got a house of 8 coming in for dinner, so it'll be fun.
Very good.
So anyway, let's talk markets again. Still, everybody's crying overvalued this, and I see more articles, Mike, about the imminent crash that's coming. The interesting thing is I've been in this industry 40 years. And people have been predicting over and over and over again, every week, every month, crash, 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 crash. And when a crash actually happens, whoever was the last to sound the crash alarm, they come off like they're a genius for about 3 or 4 months. And at the end of 4 months, everybody realized it was like the broken record. It was like the clock that is right twice a day. It's like the blind squirrel finding a nut. People do this and they make these predictions over and over and over again. And I got to admit, I've been guilty of it in the past. I realized that I did this also. So it's the pot calling the kettle black. And you just got to put it out of your mind and focus on the Federal Reserve. That's your big concern, the Federal Reserve. And even if the Federal Reserve does tighten, and even if the Federal Reserve does, cause the market to go down 10, 20, even 30%, the question is the world coming to an end because of that? Because the Federal Reserve's been doing that since the beginning of 1913.
Right. Yeah. What does Charles Schwab say about an investor?
An investor always needs to be an optimist, that even if the markets go down, he or she doesn't just back out of the market afraid of the future because they believe the future is positive. If you don't believe the future is positive, then you accumulate guns and big dogs and you buy a farm and you stock food and you go hide out there,
Yep. That's your alternative.
That's your alternative. And it's not worth living a life thinking that way. I believe that the future is incredibly bright right now, that the future is ridiculously bright, that the amount of innovation that's coming, the amount of people that are rising up from poverty into the middle class throughout the world, and despite all the division and despite all the negative press over things, this has been going on since the beginning of time, Mike.
Well, I have to guarantee you one thing. If you keep talking like that, there's no chance you're getting on the news.
You can't be an optimist on the news.
No.
You got to get into the concept of promoting something that evokes either incredible greed or incredible fear, and they tend to favor the incredible fear, like you said. Anyway,
let's focus on what we can control. So one of the things we've been doing a lot at the end of this year is Roth conversions. And why do you think we're doing that, Drew?
Why are we doing Roth conversions? Because Roth IRAs are the most powerful thing you can do for your finances, is making sure that if you have the ability to convert a Roth when you're in a low tax bracket, and you think it's going to go higher, or you're in the same tax bracket as you think it's going to be in the future, now's the time to be doing Roth conversions. So take myself, Mike, I moved to Florida, right? I'm now a Floridian. There's no doubt Maryland would have a very difficult time saying that Drew and Bev have not disengaged from Maryland and become a Floridian. That's 8.5% reduction in my income tax liability that's not considered Maryland source income. So I did a fairly large conversion this year because I also know that the federal tax rates are 37% this year, Mike, and they're trying to push them back to 39.6% on the high end. So
Right.
I did a fairly large conversion. I'm
But
willing to pay the tax.
But your example is actually an example of the one thing that we need people to hear when because you and I get on the bandwagon and we beat the drum of the Roth and the Roth conversion all the time. And the one thing that we just need to make sure you hear when we're beating that Roth conversion drum is that even though we're telling you most of the time it makes sense, you still need to have somebody think about it with you. So in
Yeah.
Drew's situation, if this was last year or a year before that, and we were talking about doing a Roth conversion, you go, wait a minute, aren't you planning to move to Florida next year? Well, then don't do it now. Wait till you move. The other
Sure.
scenario there's plenty of cliffs built into our tax system where $1 of additional income pushes you over some threshold for a deduction or a credit or a Medicare premium. So these are all the reasons why, yes, we're telling you need to be thinking about Roth conversions, but don't just do it. Get a qualified tax professional to make sure they look at it with you, like us.
I'll give you a great one, Mike. We had a client that single female. Her income's only going to be taxable income's only going to be like $42,000. Okay, $42,000. Now you would figure that that's a pretty simple equation. That they're in such a low tax bracket, you'd want to do the conversion. But here's the problem: that if I converted $10,000 of her income, it would have created $18,500 of new taxable income because Social Security is in that phase-in range at that income level. So 10,000 taxed at $18,500 at 12% is almost like a 24% tax bracket to somebody who's typically only in a 12% tax bracket. It would make no sense for me to argue to her to take more money out and convert it to Roth.
Right. But you know what? Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's a perfect lead in to the fact that we were going to talk about controlling income for other sorts of benefits. So, what would you tell somebody who's retired but before Medicare about controlling their income?
Well, you're not on Medicare, right? So you need medical insurance. Maybe you're going to do Cobra. Maybe you're going to just go to the exchange and get a policy, and it's going to cost you $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 a month. What we do is we figure out how to control their AGI. And this is the Italian way of explaining this, Mike.
Mhm.
This is the way you're going to control AGI, bringing it down to about 60,000. This is the Italian for 60,000. When you get there, the government's going to pay most of the premium. And you might say, no, will you never be able? Yes, in some situations, we may not be able to get there. But if we don't think about it and come up with strategies that may be able to get you down there, we had a client that was making $130,000 a year, and we got him down into that $60,000 bracket, and boom, he got a giant premium tax credit. Government paid for his medical insurance. It was at least $1,000 to $1,500 a month they were paying for him.
Yep, absolutely.
So there's lots of good things. And one more thing, Mike, in 2022, we got a lot of clients that are turning 65 and they're eligible for Medicare. They need to be talking to us. Do not think you've got the information on us. Just at least do a second opinion with us before you make any decisions on Medicare or Social Security or anything of that sort. Just talk to us. Don't assume that somebody else is giving you the correct information. Don't assume that you read an article that gives you, just get a second opinion with all the research you might have done or did not do. Just come to us and say, this is what I'm going to do. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
That's who we are.
Well, one bit of housekeeping, and then we'll go back to other helpful tips for the end of the year. So a lot of what we're talking about, things we're doing, by the time you're getting this video, you're in the final days of us being able to do anything. So unfortunately for TD Ameritrade, as they've gone through the Schwab acquisition, their service teams are really suffering. I mean, there's a lot of employment issues in across the country. So their deadline is pretty much the beginning of December. And Schwab goes till about December 15th on many of its items. But if any of the stuff we're talking about is something you want to do, stop the video, pick up the phone, call us right now. And
That
I
would
hope
be
you watch this on the first day we put it out.
Roth conversions, the donor, making gifts to charity, setting up donor advised funds. These are things you need to do by the end of the year if it's applicable for you. And like you say, the deadline is running quick. So get it done. Also, Mike, before we go, we had a great open house. Lots of people came through. It was a great day.
Yep. And if you missed it, it's probably still going to be another month or so, but we're going to do a video tour of our new office space once the final bits and pieces get put together.
And the building is going to be branded with the name Financial Consulate outside. So hopefully that'll be part of your video.
Yep, absolutely. Well,
You've done a great job.
Well, I had the housekeeping items in there, but just a quick recap of a couple things that are kind of timely to the month of December. This is a month that a lot of people are thinking charitably. I know this week Drew is going to do our charitable show of the radio show Money, Riches, and Wealth, which I appreciate because it means I don't have to be there for that night. I'll be working on cooking. But we talk about this stuff all the time, but just a quick recap of 3 of the topics that most often, are kind of on that charitable category is donor advised fund. So this is the ability where you say, okay, I give money to charity every year, but this year I'm going to take a bunch of money of 3, 4, 5 years worth of my giving. I'm going to put it all in the donor advised fund in 1 year so I can get that tax deduction. I'm going to force myself to itemize by that year by having this large charitable donation. And then I'm actually still not going to give it all out to the charities that year. I'm going to give it over those 3 to 5 years. So the donor advised fund is something we can help you create, give a bunch of money at one time, and then dole it out over time. Drew, why don't you cover the QCD?
Qualified charitable distribution is you have to be 70 and a half. Don't ask me why. 70 and a half is kind of a strange age, 70 and a half. I tend to celebrate my half-year birthday also.
That's true.
Which is January 31st, in case you didn't know.
Send him an email. Send him an email. Happy half birthday.
The qualified charitable distribution has to be done each year. You have up to 100,000 you can give out of your IRA. But what most people do is that if they're taking a required minimum distribution and they like to give to charity, they give to charity from their required minimum distribution. It's a strategy that is a no-brainer, Mikey. I can't think of a single reason not to do it.
As long as you were going to give money to the charity anyway.
If you're going to give money to charity and you're forced to take a required minimum distribution and you're over 70 and a half, which is logical you would be, then do the qualified charitable distribution, but not for small amounts of money, Mike. Don't call our team up and ask to do a $25 QCD. Call us up if you've got a few $100s you want to do. That would be relatively worth it.
Right. And the last thing, which actually can be a combo with the first one we talked about, is giving highly appreciated securities.
Yes, giving highly appreciated securities. So let's say, like you said, let's say you're very charitably minded. So you open up a donor advised fund, you give highly appreciated securities. Why do we do that? I buy a stock at 10, it goes to 50. I get to put that stock in the donor advised fund, get a full deduction at 50 and not pay taxes on the $40 a gain that I made in that stock. And here's another thing, Mike. Let's say I put $50,000 in the donor advised fund because I tend to give $10,000 a year and I'm funding it for 5 years, okay? I could do a Roth conversion all at the same time. I could do the $50,000 in the donor advised fund and then say, hey, I've got a $50,000 deduction. Instead of pulling all that tax money back to me, let's just do a Roth conversion and suck up the taxation of the $50,000 with the donor advised fund contribution of highly appreciated securities.
We call that the triple whammy.
The triple whammy. That is exactly what you would call it. I think we're out of time, and
I think you're
everybody
right.
will get this video after Thanksgiving. So we'll just wish them all Merry Christmas, a great holidays, enjoy, and we'll look forward to seeing you in January. This is Drew Tignanelli saying God bless.